Hello, everyone. Now we're going to talk about how to support someone, learning how to support a person. And we talked yesterday about how in conversation we can notice sometimes that the energy has shifted, right? Like something's changed, and I think we all can recognize that, like something happened here. Usually that's somebody got triggered, something's going on. And noticing especially in their body, you can oftentimes see minor facial changes. They start to shift things in their body, or you do, like you're feeling something strange and you may not understand it, but tuning into that other person is huge. Just a huge piece of like, and being curious about it. Like, something's going on here. Do you need something? You can ask them a question if you want. Or just noticing that for yourself and saying that if you feel comfortable and safe with that person, saying that out loud, like something's going on here, I don't know what it is, I'm just going to say that out loud. Sometimes just noticing that and saying it can be helpful. The main thing I want to talk today about, though, is active listening. And what active listening is, it's really helpful when someone needs support. And it's basically when there's many different components to active listening, but it's a way to respond to somebody in a really supportive way. So it oftentimes looks like paraphrasing what that person might be saying. Hi, Savita. And so it's a really powerful way to give support, though. And it's really useful when somebody is perhaps needing some validation, when they just want to know they're not crazy, if they want to, a reminder that they're not a bad person, because in truth, we think that a lot about ourselves. So nice that you're here, Savita. And so the active listening is just, someone says something, you sort of refine that into a few words, into a shorter statement, so to speak. And it can be just extremely helpful to that person to recognize that they're being heard. And it's also a way to clarify things, because if you're not able to track what they're saying, then it's a way for you to be able to say so is this what you're saying? And then you can paraphrase it. Or so what I'm hearing is, and I just want to make sure I got this right, can be another way to say that. Just to be able to wrap it up in a nice package and be able to say to that person, this is what I'm hearing, this is how I'm following you. And that gives them the chance to clarify, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Or no, that's not quite it. So it's okay if you're wrong too, because it's actually better to be wrong and get clarification than it is to really, be on a different track than what the person is talking about. So, you can ask a question, Savita. How does one get what they want, which is impossible in spite of negative things heard? And so you're talking about in a conversation with somebody else. How does one get what they want, which is impossible in spite of negative things heard? I'm not quite sure I understand the question, actually. So, because if you're asking for something that is impossible, that might be hard. That might be hard to ask for. I'm a big fan of asking for what we want. And so either if you could clarify what you're asking, that would be helpful, or I'm going to just have to make some assumptions in relationships. Okay, so then what I would suggest, this practice of active listening can be extremely helpful in what you're talking about, because it helps that person to understand. If you can ask them to relay back to you what they heard, what they think they heard from you, at least you're communicating, right? And at least that person is understanding you. And so that, I think, having a practice of, it's sometimes called reflective listening too. That's one aspect of active listening, where can you reflect back what you heard? I want to make sure you understand. And then if you have that as it takes longer, for sure. It takes some time. And how do I like to get things to work out? For example, my husband wants a divorce and I'm against it. How do I attract the positive to get things to work out? And that's a great question. So, hi, Nikki. In terms of attracting the positive, I know you're in a great Facebook group, and I think that is fantastic. I think I would also look at his reasons for wanting a divorce and try and understand the dynamic between the two of you, that something isn't working for him in terms of what his needs are, and maybe, exploring that with him. When things are really hard too, I'm also a big fan of going to therapy. But in terms of attracting the positive, so you're wanting him to feel positive, which we can't force that to happen, but we can feel positive about ourselves, right? Like we can attract that to ourselves. And so maybe that's what you need to focus on, is what you're maybe grateful for in the relationship and what you're finding positive in the relationship. Those are the things that can help attract more of that for you. And so those are some things to think about. And hey, Najim. And so, yeah, that's a great question. And that's probably the best I could do right now. And I'm trying to keep this pretty short for people, but I appreciate you coming here. And you're more than welcome to private message me as well. I'd be happy to talk more about that. But the active listening is a great piece, because maybe with the active listening, let's just say there's a relationship problem. If, giving him the opportunity to speak his truth. So what's hard for him about that relationship? What does he not like about the relationship? You being able to hear that and reflect back to him in terms of what needs are not being met for him. And maybe, I don't know if those needs can be found, can figure it out. Hi, Emily. So that's something to think about. And that's a perfect example where active listening can be extremely helpful to work on conflicts and challenging situations, because what happens is that emotions get big and then we can't think and then we can't resolve things. And so if we can stay in one of the components of active listening is to stay in curiosity, so that you're really wondering, well, what does that mean to you? Or, you're really curious about what the experience is like for the other person, so that you don't get stuck in your own fear or hurt or shame about maybe something that you did. And so this is all hard, I know, and it's a practice, but it can be extremely helpful for step by step to start to sort of unravel and unwrap some of the challenges between people in a relationship, when we can reflect back what they're saying, and then we can be curious about what their experience is, so that we can understand. And it's nice if we can ask for the same. When we start to give that to people that are close to us in our lives, it makes it easier for us to ask for something similar, in terms of, I would like to know I'm being understood. Can you tell me what you're hearing from me? Like, that's a really good way to ask for it, without being so directive. I want you to do active listening, but you could just ask that question. So, it sounds like you're in a really hard place, Suvita. And I really feel for you. And tomorrow I'm going to actually talk about deep listening, which is another form of listening. And to me, it sounds like that's what you might need right now. But in terms of gratitude, I think sometimes, like for me, I oftentimes will go to gratitude for my legs, or my body that's able to work. Hi, Alfonso. So finding gratitude in, like, actually this morning's practice was gratitude in everything that was happening in the morning routine. So I had gratitude for light. I had gratitude for a roof over my head, gratitude for being able to drink water in the morning, gratitude for having a restroom nearby me, gratitude for running water. Like, there are sometimes, if we can't find it in the relationship, then it would be to find where you can find gratitude. Where in your life can you find gratitude to elevate your thinking and to help it to be a little more positive? Hopefully that's helpful. And we'll be doing a lot of this in the gratitude practice, so I'm happy you're joining us for that. So I'm going to wrap it up here today, and I just so appreciate everyone joining me today. And thank you, and I hope you have a blessed day and just a wonderful, amazing evening. Okay, bye.